How was yesterday lab, guys? Stan and Oscar, where did you guys get to?
We were down to
B1, I think.
Yeah.
We're on
B1 here?
yeah.
Which part?
1 or 2.
Here?
B1. Yeah, we added the math bar and
You got current user. Could you display current user in the view?
no, we didn't do that. Not yet.
Okay. How about you, Ian and Pri? What number did you get to? Okay. A3, which part? Come again? A3, what number? You mean 1 or 2? A? 8. Oh, okay. So here, did you add Bootstrap? Did you add the Flash messages? Not yet. Okay. This is the shorter way to do Flash messages. They're quite similar, but you guys see that it's just a helper method. In the previous exercises, I used flash.each. This one I use this flash messages, but I moved the complicated part of flash.each inside a helper. So I have this method that generates HTML. So some of this may seem funny to you. Just generate a div tag, just generate a button tag, but it looks relatively easy to understand, right? So for each flash key and value, we put them inside a content tag. Here I even add a button for you to close the flash message. And then I join a bunch of them, as different HTML. It's not saved. It will return a string and then it print out to this application HTML file. This is application.html file. So let's say normally you have like link to, you have image tag. So it could be anything. It could be like, for example, I have a method called display user. Okay, let's say I put a current user here, and you can write your own method to display the HTML part in it. Ian, does that make sense? Oh, what is HTML saved? Okay, I thought you were asking where it is saved. What is this thing, right? It just make a string display as HTML. If you don't call this, Rails will print them on the browser as HTML tags. Because if you say this is, for example, div hello, you will see on the browser the same string. Because it's just for security. You don't want any string to be displayable. What if someone enters some JavaScript? Someone write this alert, and then this actually trigger JavaScript stuff. Someone add like not alert but script. Alert. Hey, that is JavaScript. And if for cases like this, you don't want to call HTML save because then the browser will execute that JavaScript. This flash, the string is decided by us. Yeah, and so it's HTML save. But we use this in a lot of projects. So it becomes something you can just copy and paste easily. Yeah, it's like a snippet for you if you like. Sometimes just do it yourself so you get used to it. If you want to save time, that's okay. If not, just do it yourself so you learn and train your muscle memory is easier. So again, here for example, who knows, I may want a card that display the user, right? We have in here, there's a div class card, and I display blah 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 on the user. But if you write all this raw HTML, it's harder to write. That's why people in the helper, sometimes they like to use content tag and div, and then you put the inside the text inside the element here. Does that make sense? All right. So I'll give you guys time to finish this lab as well, and so we have to finish this before we move on. Ian and Fu, what milestone did you get to yesterday? Okay, A3, which one? Did you have the user's controller? Do you know what number? Do you know what number? Sorry. Number 4. Did you finish number 4? Sorry, can you speak louder, please?
I continued at home, so A3,
So you continue until where? What number? So you were 4 in, you say you were 4 in class, no? Okay, so I do have the lab for today, but you guys can work on, finish that one first, and when it's ready, then I will do the lecture for today, which will be this stuff, which also related to logging in. Okay. Also, I guess there's one more thing here, protecting certain pages, right? So this is part of authorization from certain user. So this is authorization. What you learned yesterday is authentication. But let's continue with this one, and we try to be fast and interactive, but review a little bit. Do you have any questions about the test stuff? What can you tell me about testing in Rails? Is something you learned from it? Each person to share something you learned from this test. Ian, you wanna try?
when test is for positive and negative at the same time, so should something should not something.
Uh-huh.
So this can be quite confused in many cases. The images is positive to target.
Okay, that's a good point. So for positive or not positive, eventually it's up to you.
Yeah, but if I write the list is right positive,
Right.
and someone write negative, and
Right. You probably need both, right? For example, how do you write a test that I wanted to test if I don't have an email, I should not be able to see it, to save.
if I don't have an email, I should not be able to send if I have email. I should.
Are you sure that's the same? If the user create an account without an email, should you be able to save it? So you have to see the not word somewhere. So you have to be comfortable with both sides. But there's a very good point there, so I will explore this a little bit. So everyone sort of pay attention to this, yeah? Initially, in this here, you see test with a string. This test is a method. And string here, it's just a string, right? But you don't see anything else. This is a test that has not been implemented. It's quite nice to write down what you should test, but you don't have to implement it yet. And when you run the test, it will complain, and make sure you implement that. So it's like a to-do list. Again, your checklist in your README file. Okay, so when you start implementing, this is the method that we just talked about. Wait, why can't I even type that? Okay, then this is the Ruby magic. What Ruby is creating is that it will run a method, and then you'll see that there is this method, right? It looks a bit interesting here. Should not. You see, it convert the whole string into a long Ruby method. Obviously, you don't have to worry so much about it. But underneath, the test framework has to use a method name. So Rails convert this. This is Rails, active support is Rails. Rails convert it into test should not. It's like something like this. Def test should not save without an email. So it's quite interesting. It generates that method. And inside this method will be similar code that you have in here. Now, let's talk about what's that? Positive or what's that? Affirmative or negative test here. So, if you create a user without, so in this case, you can do something like this. If user new, and then if you call user safe, if you only want to test you say positive there, right? Affirmative sense, you can say assert, right? What do you want to call assert? Like something has to exist. So any recommendation? I can just say assert equal. Yeah.
Users are false users.
I want to assert equal. If I know there's an error in the email field, then it has to be assert equal something. So normally I don't know what it is, so I just put random shit in here. Yes, it's an object. Yeah, this is active record. So if you have a user model, if you have a message model, anything that is not new here, normally the errors will be empty, right? But after you save, there's some error, then there's some errors in them. And if the error fail because of a validation on email, then you see it under email. Does that make sense? So for example here, if I say class user validates email, presence true, then what happened here is that you will have a can't be blank error, and it will be inside this error email, right? Except one more change you have to make. There may be uniqueness is true. It means the error you have here is also must be unique or something like that. So that's why you have to see you put an array here. You're comparing an array with an array because this guy returns an array. Sometimes you may have more than one error, like must be unique or something like that, right? Or it's not unique for some reason. I forgot what the error is for that guy. Now this is what you call that. Does it make sense for you on how to test if I cannot save? So you testing should save with an email, right? Yeah, of course you should have this test. But you see, if you have this test, you still need this test. In fact, this test is more important. Why? Can someone ask why? Guess. When you use your app, you will always use this anyway. If you cannot save, when you use your app, you cannot even use it. So this should save with an email. You should test it. But this test is even more important. It's even more important because it catches the cases when if you accidentally have all this weird empty email user, later it causes your program to crash and you don't know why.
As above, and as a user log you and pass a party now with our email and prove that it cannot send the email.
You should not write a test one thing and then go and test something else. If you write your test, you should save with an email, and then down here you create a user without an email, and then you try to save. Your friend will be very angry because it's not clear. So in this case, are you trying? The things here say should save, and then here you say assert not save. That will be bad. Your test is doing one thing, and then the message is saying another. That's why it's very important for you to put the not word when appropriate. Does that make sense, guys? So in here, it's good. User should save with an email. It means either you put email here, or you do user.email here. All right, up to you. So then you save. But in this case, I make sure that it's saved. So let's review. It's very important to review this. If you don't ask, I'm not responsible. If you don't ask, you're stuck. Assert means anything after this has to be true. If it's not true, then the test will fail. We okay with that? In this case down here, I test this. It will try to run. Now Ian, this return true or false? False. So you can leave it like that. Or you can be extra sure. You can say assert not. It means it has to be not true. So you can have multiple assert. It means any of the assertions fail, the test will fail. And why not? This is powerful. This is nice. It's like, hey, I'm gonna save, but also just check it. Some other people like to run it this way, like up here. If you really some people want to test like this, user.save. Now this will crash. Sorry about that. This will crash if you cannot save. So that's a very good way to make sure your code always works when you want it. If you want this to be true, then you better, it's nice to use that, exclamation there. And if it ever crashes, then it's your job to fix your code. Because the data, you say, oh, it must be able to save. So this is something that you did not expect. But sometimes you want to handle true and false. Okay. Now if you want this to really save, obviously you need a password. Otherwise, it still fail. Are we clear on this one? Okay. So your question about the not and should not. In this case, you can have both. Assert not user.save. Because you call user.save here already, no need to call it separately. So this is very common.
User errors again. So because there are many errors in the email,
Uh-huh.
what I should do is I check all the errors first. Then that's eventually.
There are many possible errors. But in this case, are you going to have all the errors? So don't write a test that has all 10 different errors and make you go through them. Only write a test with one error like this. So I'm going to give an example based on yesterday's code. It's good to review this. And so again, like this is interactive. This is a discussion more than a lecture. So please work together on this one. Just ask me to explain. I'll try to explain better. All right. Let's really take a look at this error method. User.new. I assign that to this A. No problem there, right? A.errors. It's currently an active errors object, but it's very similar to the array. So if you do .length, what do you get? There's no length then. If you do email, it's an empty array. If you do maybe password, it's an empty array. These are the fields in that. Why is it empty? Yeah, because I don't have a value, it should fail, no? This right now is A valid. Not even. We have not checked yet. So there's no errors. So when you press A.save, it will run the validation. This will run validation. And what are validations? Validations are the things that you define there. Okay? Before it's saved. If you want to check for validation without saving, there's a method called valid. It's very similar to .save. It's almost the same, except it doesn't save. So if you give A an email, so now wait, I just called it valid, right? It means now the errors will show up. The errors will show up. And Ian, can you see some errors here? Okay, so that's why I asked you to only look at the email. I did not ask you to look at password. Right? Of course, I know this object is not enough. It doesn't have a password either, but I don't care. In this test, it should just test for the email part. You should not test for all cannot be blind, because later you may validate a person's age. You may validate, a person's name. God knows what else you validate. So if you compare the whole errors array, that's bad. Does that make sense? So let's say if I only look at email, you can be even more careful. I don't know, maybe validate length. Yeah. So then let's say I'm going to add a length validation. I don't really Rails validate length. Something like, yeah, that's it, minimum and maximum. So for example, I say length minimum is 2 characters. Right? It's probably, you need at least 3 for email. Let's try. Reload. A is user.new. Now A.errors. Do you think there's anything in here? Nothing, right? You see there's a base and then there's a messages. So, there's nothing. But now I ask for valid. It's similar to save, but it doesn't save. So check the validation. I think valid is the same as validate. They are the same method. Exactly the same. Just, the question mark helps you understand it's true or false. So now I have A errors. Okay? And A errors, now if you check email, you see there too. So when you do this, you could, there are 2 ways to test this. In the case the model is this complicated, you could test this by copying this guy, go here, and do this. Right? I do not like that very much, but it's still okay. I think it should not save, and this is actually still very clear. But if your test is should not save with, without, you're only testing whether it's present or not. You only care about the can't be blank. Right? So it's, if you write in English, it's something like this: assert, inside, there's something in, and then this guy cannot be blank, should be an element inside this array of errors. If only I have something called assert in. Does that make sense for you to think that way? Like assert, I don't have equal, I don't have true or false. I want to check. Assert is almost like assert in, 1 is in 1, 2, 3. It's very, and then this will actually crash if you pass 4 into it. That's nice. If only I can have something like that. So let's see if we have something like that. So in this guy, what I care about is these guys are called assertions. And there are a lot more that we have not used. And we don't even need to know them. You actually almost never use the, this guy. It's when you get to the more complex ones, but you use this one. This one, it's now, it makes sense. Assert equal, we use a lot, right? Assert not equal could be used. So then inside you can pass in, the two objects that are not equal without having to change them. Instead of doing an exclamation mark expected or something like that, right? Assert nil, you know that. Assert not nil is nice. If you check an array, you can check assert empty. A string, you can also check that. So maybe if you want to check there's no error, you could. There's no error somewhere, like in the previous. Let's see if I can get this one. If there's no error, in the case this is no error, you could do assert not empty, for example. Right? Actually assert empty. User.errors on email, something like that, right? So this to give you an idea of what you can test these guys. So is there something that it is here? It's something that check if an element is in an array. That's what it is, right? So let me see. A lot of them, huh? I think this is the right one. Assert includes, but when you put it there, notice the order is different. You want the collection first. Collection is like array. So in this case, so you can say assert. How do I write this one? Would you like to try? Assert includes. An array includes something else. Alright, user dot errors email. It should include one of these strings. It should include one of these strings. Can't be blank. Right? So that's how you write that test. And of course, again, if you really want to be smart about like, I can do an extra test, then you write that. And the counter when you run Rails tests, there's a higher test count, so it's nicer, no? More tests. Now you could say should not save with an invalid email or an email that's too short. Then you can do that, and you can test the same thing with the other one. You can use something called regular expression to check an email format. But I'm not going to show you that this time yet. Okay? Then it will check like whether there's an at as an aside, there's a domain name, there's a there's different parts of the URL. And if when you work on an app, you're quite likely to do something with Rails, validate emails. You probably find some good pointer. So for example here, this guy saying, well, you could just check your email format. It must contain the string, the @ symbol here. That may be enough. The problem with email validation is that sometimes if you're too strict, a lot of the new email domain name actually are not valid, and then you prevent your user from being able to sign up. A lot of the email formatting tool that you find out there, a lot of popular websites, if you sign up, they're like, oh, password is not correct, email is not correct, because they're too strict. They're strict like this, and then something's gonna happen if it doesn't behave the way you want. Okay? For example, here, domain name after the dot must be more than 2 characters. What happens when there's 1 character later on? So here, domain name must be from A to Z. What happens if it's not? So sometimes you could try to use the gem in your real production app, and you want it to look good. If it has a lot of stars and forks, it has follow these research. What's that? RFC is goddamn. I forgot what RFC is now. It's a standard request for comments. But basically, these are the proposal for the standardized format that everyone should agree on, and then people can implement the validator correctly. So yeah, so if you like, you can do more extensive email validation this way. But the concept is important. First, understand validation. Second, understand the stuff under these errors, and there's this key. And third, understand how to do assert with different types. Okay? The include method, I think, is in the array itself, right? Like 1, 2, 3 here if I'm A. This A is 1, 2, 3. I think there may be A include. You can check. Say B is 1. A include B. That's true. Right? A include 5. That's false. So it becomes quite natural. I want to test if an array includes another one. Assert. Include. I want to check if an object is equal to another one. Assert. Equal. Right? I want to check if something is true. Assert. True. I want to say something is false. Assert not. So it will get used to. You'll get used to it. Okay. We good here? I'll just delete this. So the exercise of this is even more important to do as pair, because then you guys talk about it. You don't, you just follow and you type, and there's no way. The talking it out is more important than the typing. So I hope that you're like, okay, I don't know why there's a square bracket here. Then you ask. But I hope that now it's clear. You could do this, or you could do assert equal. You can write this test. We will fail if your app, you add more validation, which is alright. Then you fix the test. But here you could do that, what I just explained, right? Assert includes errors email can't be blank. And initially, feel free, I don't know what the hell that is, just put something there. And then you read the error message. It's super clear. The error message will it will say something like can't be blank, does not include 1, 2, 3. And then you read this error message, you're like, I know how to fix that. I just copy and paste the can't be blank text in there, my test passes. That's the fun part of it. Each in these errors. Yeah, so normally, no need. If you test something this small, if your code is very smart, if your test code is very smart, you're doing something wrong. Please don't try to be smart. It can be this code that you can give it to your friend who doesn't know how to code and can try to read like English. And it's like, I think I know what you're doing. Okay? Please do not try to test everything. Each test, try to make it as simple as you can. You see how I keep everything as simple as it is? It seems really obvious, but it's not. Like, someone may make some changes and you do a.name is one thing, and then maybe it's saved to the database, but it doesn't save, and then when you do a.name back and it doesn't work. Okay? So, by practicing writing these super obvious tests, it makes you become a little bit more careful and better. You see, when I demo in class, I make one small change, I go and show you guys that it works or not. I'm not trying to be super smart, like I'm gonna write 10 different things and then suddenly load the browser, it will work. Sometimes when you're alone in the dark, you make a mistake, no one's gonna laugh at you. I may try that, but okay, so I think the first milestone is quite interesting. It's very dry, but let's pretend that it's interesting. The second thing about has user password. Do you guys understand this bit of code when you try one at a time. Do you understand that this is a virtual attribute? This is not saved to the database.
What could I say is like when you enter a new user, you can use both the confirmation password
Uh-huh.
without the confirmation password. Would it lead to initialization for user?
I think you mean you can create a password without confirmation.
And also the password.
So, yes, if you look at this page, I mean, you don't have to. I will explain a little bit here. If the password confirmation is not needed, if in your app you don't care about it, then you just ignore it. Simply leave it out. Just don't provide a form field for it, or don't do params require permit. Don't permit this value to be submitted. Right? Obviously, params permit should permit everything that you put in that form because you want to see what the user submit. But if you don't want password confirmation, like similar to the demo app that I may have put somewhere up here, or it's in the assignment. Yeah, so that's the idea. So if I don't, here's my user, right? If I do dot password is ASDF and I save, false, I look at the errors, let's say full messages, right? I don't see the password error, you see? But if I save password confirmation, if it's not nil, to be anything else, then I try to save again, or again call validate or valid, right? So I just check, yeah, valid, okay? Then now a.error dot, where is it? Full messages, password confirmation doesn't match password. So it only check password confirmation if it's not nil. Does that make sense? Yeah? Does that make sense?
What I want to ask is how the class when you create with a method where you can accept pre-agreement is okay. And also for agreement that's okay too.
Are you saying that new method? That new here? No, it's a very good question. Does anyone know the answer?
But in we cannot create two initialization, two initialize method.
You can.
We can accept pre and for.
Where? 3, 4? Okay, that's a good question. Yes.
No, I don't know.
You don't understand the question? So, your question is, it's like how many arguments can you accept in here, right?
Can use label and use an initialize method.
Yes. So again, I want to ask this. So you have a few questions in one. Your question is like, can you have multiple initialize? Okay. So for the purpose of this talk, this discussion right now, in general, you just have one initialize. Okay. But your initialize can have as many arguments as you want. It can handle as many cases as you want. It's not as as a singular case as you think. It's possible to define a method with a lot of arguments. You can just do this and you can have a bazillion arguments. It doesn't matter. This is an array of arguments. Okay? But this is not what happened. It's a completely different thing from what you see here. When you put name is something, it's very good that you ask this. So make sure we all understand this. When you say name is something, password is something, how many arguments are there? 1. No, I mean, good try, but I tricked you. Because this is a hash. It's a hash. Do we just say, well, it's a hash, you don't have to do it, but in JavaScript you do. Yeah? So obviously you can pass in a hash. You can pass in nothing, not nil, but nothing, or an empty hash, right? Or in this hash you do name. Well, if you do that, you have to put a parenthesis, otherwise it thinks it's a block. Okay? Or you say you call this a hash, and then you do user.new hash. That's why you see this user in your controller, user params, right? How many arguments is that? This is one, and in this user params is params.require user permit ABCD. Yeah? Okay. Anything else that we should talk about before you guys get back to this lab and finish it? I will explain a little bit about this current user thing one more time. In the previous week, you used something like get card and set card, right? So it's just combined here. We don't use get user, set user. Just the common thing here, you see current user everywhere. In even a Node.js app or in a Rails app. So it's just a common thing to do. In like 10 years ago, people still write like get user everywhere in different apps. So nowadays it's a convention. It's kind of nice. So sometimes you do have some method like current account or current admin. Somewhere if your code get complicated, you have like a user can have multiple accounts, can be an admin, or someone prefer the word account. They don't like the word user. But current is quite popular. So this is a private method, right? It's not an action. This method can be used in your action. For it to be viewed in the view, you do helper. You write this. Okay. So then this will be available in the view. Don't worry, I will mention it somewhere. Okay? Yeah.
Private means you can't. I thought private meant that you couldn't call it outside your control.
Yeah, but you can call in the children. So let's say you have a user controller. You can call it like this. So you can call it inside the code of your controller. So obviously, you only call current user inside some method, right? As some controller code. You don't call it in your Rails console.
Okay, so like children of applications or call.
Yeah, because it's still inside the controller code, right?
Yeah.
Private means you cannot do this. You cannot do, if it's a private method in use, you cannot do user.new, like let's say in this case application controller .new.current user. This is a private method, then it cannot be used. But if you write a private method and then you keep using it in here, that's fine. Yeah. Now the view is an exception when you allow that, it's private, but you'd say, hey, make this a helper method, then it will also allow you to do that. View is not another class. View is sort of part of your controller. So. Okay. Now this by now it looks like this, but if you still don't understand this when you work on it with your partner, just ask, okay? And I can explain more. The variable is here set when the user visits the page, it hits a server. The server runs the code, and then the server will render the HTML. When it's rendering, when we're doing ERB, the current user variable is already set, so you can reuse it. After it finished rendering, return to the browser user, you see it on the browser. This is gone. That's it, right? It's gone. It's one request. This lasts in one request, and it's nice so that the current user action and the method here can be used again. And you don't want to use this current user instance variable directly. I'm using it to save the value. Wherever you go in your code that you use current user, just use this method like this. If current user like this. In your view, you can also do if current user in your controller. Is that okay? So the set card is very similar to set user here, but you're not setting the user. You setting the what? Saving the ID of the user. So I call it get in login instead, but it's similar to your set card in last week's lab. Okay, let's do the lab then.